You are listening to the Conquering Everest podcast. This is episode 22. Welcome to the Conquering Everest podcast. My name is Brian Talor, and I just want to say thank you. Thanks for spending a bit of your day here with me. Now, today's episode, well, it's a unique episode. It was my first live cast. That's right. If you're not subscribed to the Conquering Everest podcast on YouTube, or you're not following the Conquering Everest podcast Facebook page, well, you're missing out because I've got a whole lot of live shows scheduled to air here in the near future. What I'm doing is I'm recording, it's kind of a bonus, right? We're going to give you the live cast of these conversations, and from those live casts, this podcast is created. So, with that said, if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you go check out the Conquering Everest podcast YouTube page. I will there's a link in the description below, as well as the Facebook page. Follow either one. We'll be, going live multiple times a week, and it should be a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, today's episode was a good one because I had a really good guest, and I had a conversation with Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. Now, Randi is an author. She's written 5 books, 2 of them children's book. As well, she is a mental health advocate and a kickboxer. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. All right, good deal. Well, we're live. We'll see if anyone else joins us, but we're here. So why don't we just start out learning a little bit about who Randi-Lee is?
Well, that could be a long story.
Well, hey, I've got all night.
All right. So who am I? I live in Canada, pretty close to Niagara Falls area, and so I like to say I'm Southern Canadian, and I am an author. I'm a personal trainer. I have 2 teenagers and a grandbaby.
Wow.
I've been married for almost 9 years. Yes, he's 14 months old.
Okay.
He is the most adorable thing. What else? In 2018, I had cancer. So after that, I kind of bounced back. I got back into kickboxing. I'm a competitive kickboxer. I'm also a kickboxing coach. So I've been doing that a lot. So that's the really condensed short version.
The short version. So let's take it back a little bit. Let's take it back a little bit further, and let's talk about your teenage years. I know high level about you in the conversation that we had, and I know you've dealt with some obstacles, and you've had to fight your way to be able to slay those giants. But when did, I guess, not necessarily teenage years, but when did things start for you, depression or otherwise?
So that would be teenage years.
Okay, see, I guess.
Yeah, you're right on. So it was probably about 14 years old. And I felt really low. I hit it really good though.
Yeah.
I think, as most of us tend to do, you put on that happy face, you go off, you do what you got to do, and nobody's the wiser. But it definitely was in my teenage years, and I felt at a lot of times like I was just gonna either kill myself or run away. Those were my big things, especially the runaway.
The runaway. Did you like make plans to run away or?
I wrote goodbye letters to people.
Okay. Yeah. And so what would you say was contributing to that for you? Was it anything specific that you knew about at that time, or was it later on in life that you kind of figured out?
It was much later in life that I kind of figured things out, but when I was younger, I was picked on. I mean, a lot of people are picked on. That's not a unique story to me, but when you're in the middle of it, I mean, it feels like it's a unique story to you, and it feels like the worst thing ever. Right. So growing up, I didn't know that we were poor but other people figured it out based on my clothes and things. So then as I got into grade 7, 8, into high school, and people started teasing me, and it's just not a very nice feeling. So then I didn't want to go to school anymore, and I skipped a lot. But my mom had 2 rules if I skipped. I had to stay home so that she knew I was safe, and I could not fail anything. So I did all my work and I did not fail anything.
So you could skip here and there, and
oh, it was a lot more than here and there, but yes.
Yeah. So as a teenager with the depression and kind of a desire to escape a little bit, was there any drug abuse or anything that went with it? No,
actually,
okay.
I have, and I'm very proudly say this, I have never done any kind of drugs.
That's good. Yeah.
Never smoked a cigarette. Now, I definitely had some drinks, but
Right.
never went the drug or cigarette way.
So that's good. That's good, because that's a whole nother can of worms that could open up there later in life. So what was depression like for you as a teen? I know you said you were missing school, but was it hard for you to get up, or were you a functioning?
I would say I was a functioning.
Yeah.
I was a functioning depressed person. Even as an adult, I definitely would say I was functioning. Most times as an adult, got really bad, so there were some days not so functioning. But as a teenager, I still got up. I went, if it was a day I went to school, I'd go to school. I'd put on that face and just kind of do what I had to do for the day.
Right.
In my later teenage years, I had part-time jobs, so I'd go to work and do what I had to do there, and then go home and usually cry with my cats or write poetry. That was my big thing. Instead of actually hurting myself, I would write about hurting myself.
Okay. And so let's fast forward just a little bit after high school. You said you had some jobs and whatnot. When did it, how old were you when you knew that you had, you've got to get help for this?
That wasn't until I was an adult. It got to the point that I knew that I could not keep going. It was, I want to say like 6 years ago now. Sounds about right. When I finally went to my doctor, I was totally broken, I felt like. And I went to my doctor and I was like, I can't do this. And this had been my doctor my entire life. Right. My mom's doctor, my grandma's doctor, my brother, right? Like he knew the whole family. And I'm in there and I'm like crying. I can't do this and it's so hard. And my kid is this and work is this. And I just want to stay in bed all day and eat ice cream. And
yeah. Did you know you were depressed as a teen? Like, did you know what it was?
I didn't know what it was. I knew that I felt different. I knew that I didn't feel like I fit in. I knew that there were times when I didn't feel anything. And that's probably the worst part of depression, is when you feel nothing. So I call that my flatness. And so I know that there was times that were completely flat. There'd be times that my friend would say, oh, hey, do you remember we talked about doing this the other day? And I'd be like, I don't remember that conversation at all. Like at all. So that became very difficult, because when you're having conversations, but you're just sort of going through the motions and you don't even remember them, that's a whole other issue, because then you're pretending like you remember them so that people don't realize that you're not remembering.
Yeah, it's funny because as I talk, I've suffered from depression myself, and I'm sure I've had it my entire life, but I was 40 years old before it clicked in my mind that this isn't right, like something's wrong. And then I still kind of withheld. I'm like, I'm not going down that road. I don't want to be labeled. I don't, Did you find, so for me, as I look, me personally, as I look back to my teenage years, our stories are pretty similar in that I was bullied growing up. And then in high school, 16 years of age, I moved out of my parents' house and I got rebellious, right? And was doing things that, just trying to grow up really fast. And so for me, there was a lot of kind of my lifestyle at that time, late teens, early 20s. I was able to suppress the depression, which I didn't know was depression at the time, but I suppressed it with people. I suppressed it with alcohol. I did suppress it with some drugs. Did you have any, like, what, I know you said you wrote poetry, but did you have like your go-to?
Yeah. So I would say my writing poetry was a really positive coping mechanism that I use. But suppression tends to not be one of those more positive terms that we use with dealing with things, right? So there was definitely times that I would use everything else to suppress it. Like you said, people and just doing stuff. So I would just say, yeah, I can help you with that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Because I didn't want to be left alone with my thoughts.
Right.
Because that could be very troublesome. Right. So just saying, yes, I'll help you do this. And yes, I'll take on that project. And yes, I'll volunteer there.
So
then there's no time.
Yeah, you were a busybody. You tried to fill every hour. I had that as a later, like when I turned 40 and realized, okay, I've got depression. Like I knew at that point that what I was dealing with. And then there was about a year, all I did was work. I woke up from 7 a.m. till 11 at night. It felt like all I did was I had my main job, I had a second job, and I tried to fill that gap with, just figured I was earning money. I'm doing, but
it's all good.
Yeah, go. So 2015-ish, you said, is when you finally sought some help for your depression. Did you have to go through any sort of hospitalization or anything like that, or was it?
I didn't go that route because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that sounds kind of silly because really, who has time to do that? Right. But my youngest has autism, and if I was to check myself into, say, a hospital, at least where I am, they'll keep you for 3 days under watch. I didn't have time to not be at home for 3 days. I couldn't do that. Yeah. Like, my husband had to go to work. He takes care of, all the bills and that kind of thing. At the time I was working full time as well. I was in social services, which social services on top of being depressed is not a good idea either.
Yeah.
So it was actually, the one day I'm trying to remember this so there was 2 really big moments in my life for that coming to the realization. So the first one, I kept it very quiet. And I talked to my doctor, and that's when I cried to him, and he wrote me a prescription for antidepressants. I said, great, awesome, taking them.
Right.
Took them. And then, have you ever taken antidepressants?
Yeah, I'm taking them now still.
So they make you feel great and makes you think that you're all better.
Yep.
What happens when you're all better? Exactly.
You stop,
yeah. Not a good idea. No. Was not a good idea. So I did stop at one point. I am back on them. And also during that time, I finally went out and I got a psychologist as well to help me do some actual therapy, which is fantastic. She did some CBT and some DBT, and I learned a lot of various coping skills with that. But I remember this one time at work, and I just started bawling. And I can't even remember why. I know it was the beginning of the day at work. I don't remember why I was crying, but something just triggered, and I could not do it, and I just cried. And my one coworker, I got along with pretty much all my coworkers, which was great. So my coworker was, come into my office, because I'm in the hallway at this point. I'm in the hallway.
Right.
How it is it's like this hallway, and it's office. So everybody's walking by. It's one of the busiest places in the building, and here I am just crying. So
yeah.
Come into the office. So I go in the office. I said, what do you need from me? I don't know. Do you want to go home? I can't. I've got too much work. And I'm just like, I have no idea. I'm just like a complete mess.
Right.
And she just was there for me. And eventually I ran out of tears and went on with the rest of the day.
Right. I could feel your pain with that too, because when I was, working full time and when I went through, it was just a couple years ago that I went through the worst of it. And I was the same way. I'd be sitting at my desk, and then I'd get an email. Maybe it was an email that said, hey, you missed the comma in your document. And that would just set me off. And I'd be like, what and I would just, my mind would just instantly bringing the tears and all that. You had mentioned that you went to therapy and CBT and DBT. So CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. What's DBT? I'm not sure I'm familiar with it.
Yep. So DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. And that is more, so where cognitive is all about the brain and changing your thoughts. DBT, and I'm not a psychologist, so
right.
I'm sorry if somebody's like, that's not really exactly it. But from what I did of DBT, it was more like physical stuff. So the one thing that was helpful was scrunching everything up and then releasing. Other things that for me, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like cold water, splashing cold water. I don't like the cold. I am not putting cold water on me.
Yeah, I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, no. And then she also gave me this stop. It was like a little sign, and I actually had it posted on the wall for a while. And it was just stop and take a breath. If things are getting out of control, let's take a breath, take it down, and think about this through. Right. So that was really neat.
What year did you get married? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sure you remember. Your husband might not, but
actually, out of the two of us, he's the one that remembers.
He's the better one, huh? Okay.
So I've been married 8.5 years, so whatever that equals.
So you suffered from depression while you were married.
Yeah, we've been together for 14 years.
Okay. So how has
depression
caused any conflict pre-therapy or medicine?
Yeah, there'd be times when I would just be like flat, and so I wouldn't care. So, well, why don't you care? Whatever, just we'll do whatever. I don't care. Like, right? Yeah. So that would cause some issues, or because I was flat, and it's like, hey, but I need to go and parent, do whatever the parent thing needs to be done at this moment. It's like, well, I just don't care because nothing matters, and if nothing matters, why do I have to go do it?
Yeah. Your husband didn't have any. I mean, I'm assuming he was pretty supportive and
oh yeah, my husband was really great. My husband was awesome. And actually, when I went off of my antidepressants, I didn't tell him. I didn't do it based on doctor recommendation. It was not good. But what happened? So when we were walking the dogs. Last year actually is when I went back on them. So I was off probably 1.5, 2 years, something like that. Okay. And we were walking the dogs last year, just before COVID went all crazy. And good thing, I always say it's a good thing I went back on them because then I got stuck at home with everybody.
Right, yeah.
But we were walking the dogs and it's like, hon, I think I got to go back to the doctor. I think I got to go back on my antidepressants. And he's like, you went off of them?
Like,
when did that happen? Like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you, my bad. And so my husband summed it up really, really well. And I love using what he said to tell people why it's so important. So he is a type 1 diabetic. He has an insulin pump. Ah, there he is. And so he said to me, as we're walking the dogs, he goes, hon, do you want me to stop taking my insulin? I'm like, no, you die. And he goes, okay, and I don't want you to die, so take your antidepressants. Yeah. Stop being so silly.
Nice little guilt trip there. Get you with yeah.
But it worked. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, fine.
So you mentioned your youngest has autism. And so how does that all interweave with the depression and
it made it extra hard at times. So he's now 14 and he got diagnosed at 8. So it was a really long process. And during the beginning stages of when we had no clue what was happening, right? Because at first there'd be these meltdowns where like, why are you just freaking out? Like, stop doing this. Well, now that we have an understanding of the fact that he has autism and what autism is, it's like, okay, it's not a freak out, it's a meltdown. There's too much sensory going on or whatever. But at the time, I'm like, I must be the worst parent ever. I can't help my kid. I have no idea what I'm dealing with. Why are they so upset? Why don't they go to school? Why are they having so much trouble in school? I'd be called at work multiple times a week because the school couldn't handle him and I'd have to go and pick him up. And so that made me feel like not only the worst parent in the world, but now I'm the worst quote, the worst employee in the world.
Yeah.
And so you have this little chirp in your brain that you're no good, you're the worst, nobody likes you, you're failing everybody. And then you just kind of keep going down, 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 down.
So there may be somebody that listens to this or watches the live stream or listens to the podcast after the fact that maybe they have a child with autism that they don't know he has autism or he or she has autism. What would be some of the, and preface, you're not a medical doctor, anything like that, but as a parent with a child that has dealt with that, what are some of the signs that maybe newer parents should look for?
Yeah. So communication is a big one. A lot of times, so autism is quite a large spectrum. My child is very talkative. In fact, he never shuts up. However, that doesn't always mean that it makes sense, that you can comprehend what it is that he's trying to say. So that's a big thing, especially being 14 years old. I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, wow, that sounds so smart. Like, he's very, very intelligent. But sometimes it's like, okay, you need to start over because I don't understand what you just said. You need to try this again. So communication is a really big one, whether that is a lack of communication entirely or they just have trouble getting it out in a comprehensible way. Another really big one is the social skills. So that's where our diagnosis finally came in, was that in grade 3, at 8 years old, he was still parallel playing at school. So parallel playing is something that 3-year-olds do, where you're playing with your friends, but what you're actually doing is you're playing and your friend is playing and you're just sort of beside each other. You're not playing together, but you're happy enough playing beside each other. Okay. So at 8 years old, you should be interacting more with the other kids. You should be running around at recess playing pretend games, not just playing by yourself.
Right. Wow. So that makes me think back and wonder. I had friends that were like that with me as well. I mean, I wasn't the one that was kind of distant. They were, but we'd be playing separately. So that kind of makes sense thinking back now to what might have been going on there. So when did cancer come into all of this? So you're depressed. You're depressed for years. You got your medication. You went off medication. You're back on it. Your child's born. You're dealing with that, and all of a sudden, somewhere in that mix is cancer.
Well, in that mix too, my husband almost died. So.
Oh my. Okay. Well, let's start with your husband's story, and then we'll go back to your cancer. So. Let's talk about that a little bit. Okay,
so I did say I was married 8.5 years. Yeah. When we were engaged, the year before we got married, that's when we found out that he had diabetes. His blood sugar was through the roof, and I kept saying, "Hun, like, you're so sick, go to the doctor." And at the time, he was working at a hospital as a security guard, and he goes to the doctor there, and they're like, "Oh, you're just sick. Just drink lots of Gatorade. Go home. Go rest." So he comes home that night. He was working midnights. He comes home and scared the crap out of me because he's banging on the door at like 3 a.m. And I'm like, "What is that?" So I go down, open the door. He comes in. I go, "You look like crap. Like, you look like crap. You need a second opinion. This can't just be like a cold."
Right.
So he goes, No. They said it's fine. Okay. And then he was supposed to bring our youngest down, meet me at the doctor's office. And he was getting, we're going for like an allergy thing at the doctor's office. And he had to call his mom to pick him up to drive him there because he felt so sick that he couldn't drive himself drive him and our kid to the doctor's office. And I was like, "Well, why did you call me?" Yeah. I was coming from work. We were meeting there. I was coming from work. So he called his mom. But it was a good thing that he did because his mom was like, "Okay, you are not going back home until you go to the doctor. We can either go to the family doctor right now or go to the emergency room, but you're not going home right now." So it's like, oh, good. Yay, listen to your mom because you're not listening to me. So they ended up going to an emergency room and did a whole bunch of tests, whatever. And doctor comes in and said, "Are you diabetic?" I goes, "No." Like, "Are now?" And they rush him to, so at that emergency room, well, it was like, so where we are, that that emergency room doesn't even exist anymore, but it was not in a hospital. It was like a separate used to be hospital.
Okay.
And so he had to go in the ambulance to the real hospital, and they hook him up to all these IVs and all that stuff. And I'm sitting at his parents' house with our youngest, who would have been like, 4 at the time, going, what is happening? I don't know. And when finally his mom calls and tells me, and he's like, his blood sugar was like in the 40s. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. It's supposed to be like around 7-ish.
Oh, like the A1C or something?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
whatever the heck the number is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple different ones, but 40
yeah.
doesn't sound good.
No, it was way higher than it should have been. The doctor said he should have been in a diabetic coma. So yeah, that was a little stressful, a little bit. I've actually called the hospital or called an ambulance a couple times for him when like his pump breaks and things are happening, and it's pretty scary.
So you have all that, and then the universe is like, but wait, there's more.
yeah.
Okay. And that more was cancer. Yeah, hold my hair. Watch this. So let's talk a little bit about your cancer. When were you diagnosed? And
2018.
Okay, so that's not too very long ago either.
No, 2.5 years. I'm counting to that 3 years because that's when I can maybe get different life insurance.
Okay, yeah. So maybe we're jumping to the end of the story, but I'm assuming you're in remission now.
Yes, okay. I'm all good now. They took it all out.
So what was life like? Because I'm just trying to, my brain is swirling, thinking, okay, you're already dealing with mental health. Your son is got some challenges that he's working through with you as his support and nurture, and then your husband's sick.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, like, at what point do you just say, man, like,
I give up? Yeah,
I'm just going to bed.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
Actually, I did the one day. It was before my cancer. It was in 2017. Actually, I said I give up. I made a blanket fort, and I hid in my blanket fort for the day.
Nice.
So that's how my first book got written, inside of a blanket fort. So it was actually end of 2017. In November, I went to the doctor. I did the women's physical stuff we got to do. And let me tell you right now, ladies, anybody who's listening, do not put them off. Go when you are supposed to. Mm-hmm. So then the doctor called me in December and said, okay, you need to come back in. We got to talk about this. So I go into my family doctor, and he said, there is some, and he used this big, long medical term, squamous something cell. Anyways, what it meant was there were some bad cells in my cervix. And I said, oh, okay. He goes, okay, I'm sending you to a gynecologist. Okay, great. January, I went to the gynecologist. They did a small biopsy, took like a little tiny scrape. Okay, we'll call you when we get the results. Great, cool. So I go back, and they say, oh, all right, so there was a little bit of really bad cells. They called it pre-cancerous cells. Okay. He goes, but don't worry, it's just a small area, and it's just pre-cancerous. It will be a surgery. It's just a day surgery. We'll take out that part. Okay. So in March, actually would have been last week, 3 years ago, I had what I call first surgery. So my husband takes me in, and my hands get really, really cold. That's why I keep rubbing them. And the nurse couldn't get the vein to put the anesthetic in. She couldn't get the IV, and they had to actually call the head anesthesiologist to come and do it because they couldn't find my vein.
Oh man.
Yeah. She goes, okay, you wrap my hand up in like a really warm blanket. She goes, okay, let's go. Let's get some blood flow there. So then I go in, I had the surgery. It all went really, really well. And he said, okay, I will see you in 1 week or in 8 weeks for your follow-up. Cool. I'm going to go home. I'm going to rest, relax. It's all good. 1 week later, they call me and go, you need to come in right now.
Yeah.
What do you mean I got to go? No, I'm not supposed to be in for another 7 weeks. What do you mean I got to come in right now? So I go in, and I'm all by myself at this point because everybody else is at work. And it was just like, come in like today, not we're going to make you an appointment. You need to come in now. So I'm waiting because they just kind of fit me into the schedule. So I was there a while, and I go into the office finally, and I sit there, and the doctor comes in, the gynecologist, and he goes, you already have kids, right? Yes. And you weren't planning to have any more? He goes, no, my husband's already had a vasectomy. We already decided no more. He goes, okay, that's good. Because after we sent the cells in, it turns out that you have cancer.
Oh.
Oh, okay. So what do we do? He goes, well, you need to have a full hysterectomy. Okay, take it. I don't need it. Take it. I just kept saying, take him.
Get this out of me.
Yeah. But because I had just had a surgery a week before, he goes, you have to finish healing from this one first. So it wasn't until July that I've had that surgery. And that one was much worse. It was still only a day surgery and I was sent home after, but I ended up getting an infection afterwards, which put me back in the hospital and being poked and prodded some more. But that all, everything eventually worked out and I'm good and healthy now, but
right.
It was very tough.
Was it, because I haven't experienced it myself, but getting that cancer diagnosis, was that like a punch to the gut? Did it just, how did it, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but.
Oh, for sure. But as soon as you hear that C word, it's like life ending, life altering. Right. Well, and that's why I said I couldn't even think properly, which is why I just saying, okay, take it. Okay, take it. Like, I didn't know what else to say to process it other than I don't need these parts. You can have them. Take the bad ones out. And then when I got in the car, I called my husband and told him. And it was just, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
There's nothing I could do. I had to wait. I had to heal from the surgery I already had. There was nothing else that could be done at the time.
You had mentioned, so it sounds, so you wrote a book before the cancer diagnosis, right? So let's kind of leave the bad stuff to the side for a minute. Let's get into the good stuff. So let's talk about your first book.
All right. So the first one is called Thoughts of a Wanderer. And it's most of the poetry that I wrote as a teenager to deal with my depression. So the book is all mental health awareness. And I added in a little bit of my story at the beginning to kind of set people up to understand why I wrote these poems. And then a little bit of my story at the end to say, as much as these poems are about hurting myself, I didn't. And here are the reasons why I'm glad that I didn't. Mm-hmm. So that it ends on a positive note, because that is really important.
And that's available like on Amazon and all that good stuff now. So Thoughts of a Wanderer. Make sure I have that right. And we'll get it linked. So anybody that's watching, we'll get it linked in the podcast version of this once we get that up this week. But how many books in total did you write? Have you written?
I have now written 5.
5. Wow. So Thoughts of a Wanderer. What was the second book?
The second book, actually, I was writing that year that I had cancer because it came out in 2018. Mm-hmm. And I wrote it with a friend. It's all about raising our kids with neurodiversity. So mine's about raising my child that has autism, and then her son has extreme anxiety and learning disabilities. So she wrote her story about raising him. And at the end, we put in some worksheets that would be really, really helpful to parents who have kids who are recently diagnosed or newly diagnosed, because we've learned that doctors ask you the same thing over and over and over, right? And then you got to try and remember it all. Or they try this medication, that medication. What's the reason that you took them off of this or changed it? So we put a bunch of worksheets in there that we wish we would have had way back when.
Right. That I didn't catch the title.
Oh, I didn't say the title. It's called A Mother's Truth. A Mother's Truth.
So I'm going to write these down so I don't forget them.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep going down the book path. You still have 3 more here. Yeah. Tell us more about.
So the next one, I had a little bit of a hiatus from that as I was kind of pursuing the personal training thing a little bit more. But then last year I released my first kids book. Okay. It's a Christmas story. So it's called Operation Deck the Halls.
Okay.
And it's about a little girl who cannot fall asleep on Christmas Eve. So she's so worried that Santa Claus is going to go over their house and she's not going to have any presents in the morning. So the elves have to use their magic and help Santa, and it all works out in the end.
And the presents show up just like magic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll take a break from that book, but I do want to talk a little bit about your physical not physical training, but you're a kickboxer. You're a competitive kickboxer. Okay.
I am.
Let's talk a little bit about that. When did you get into the competition?
My first competition would have been in 2014.
Okay, so
That's right.
that would have been right around the Depression time. So,
One of the
so
big moments. Yep.
that's good. You can go kick people and get some of that angst out.
Oh yeah.
What attracted you to kickboxing?
So we actually had put our youngest into jiu-jitsu
Okay.
when he was 5. So that was a few years before I actually got into competing. And during that class, there was a cardio kickboxing class going on off to the corner. And I whispered to my husband the one day, I go, they have really nice butts. I want to have a really nice butt.
Oh, a good butt.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go try it. So I went and I tried the cardio kickbox class, had so much fun. I was like, okay, I'm going to try adult class. Went in there, really enjoyed hitting people. I was like, I want to compete. Yeah. And now we're here.
And did you, so I boxed, never professional. You're not even amateurly. I call, I did like a couple exhibition fights, yep. But, I started boxing, about 5-6 years ago. And one of the things I'm a speaker and I like to share stories. And one of the things that I always go back to is the gym, right? The boxing gym and all of the people. It's like, for me, it was like a family. It was like an extended family. So you found it that same way, that comforting to go there and and get instruction and be able to give instruction, things like that.
Yeah, I love it. That was the only thing really that I missed during COVID was seeing those people. Yeah. They are my social circle. They are my friends. They are, like you said, they're like a family.
Right. Yeah. You just learn so much about yourself and I don't know. That's a whole nother subject we could talk about too, but
when you can hit somebody in the face and still be friends after,
still be okay. And some of those hits you never forget. Like I can think of a few that thought we were friends. But so let's the fourth book. Let's kind of go back to your book a little bit.
So the fourth book was recently released beginning of March this year. Okay. And that one I think is my favorite book that I've written, and it's called Embracing Me. And again, it's mental health, and that one is all about embracing myself and hopefully helping other people to embrace themselves. So each chapter goes through different coping mechanisms that I used, or there's an entire chapter about therapy and the benefits, an entire chapter about medication, and if you need it, then take it. You don't have to feel stigmatized by it. There's a whole chapter on the stigma of it.
Yeah.
And again, worksheets. I love worksheets.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I think worksheets help because it's when you can translate from mind to paper. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to that. So the worksheets I think are good. So Embracing Me, and then you've got one more.
Yes, that I just released last week. It's another kid's book. Okay. And that's actually a little bit of a funny story. So the Christmas story, my husband gave it to a few of the people that he works with that have young kids. Mm-hmm. And the one, his daughter's only like 4. And the book's probably like 7 to 8-year-olds because it's a little bit of a longer story. And so she goes, well, it was good and the pictures were good, but it didn't rhyme. I go, all right, I'll make a story that rhymes. So I finally finished all the artwork and released it last week, and it's called Diamond the Cat, based on the cat that I had when I was little. Okay. Well, I had her for 20 years, so from being a teenager all the way up to just 2 years ago when she passed away. Mm. And it takes you through a day in the life of a cat, as told by Diamond in rhyming.
Nice. So so bringing us to current day with everything, thinking back the depression, the autism, cancer, the books, what's present day look like for you?
Present day looks like feeling pretty good. Okay. Right. I am having a lot more good days than bad days, that's for sure. Finding your passion's really helpful. So I love writing. Hopefully, I'll turn that into more of a full-time gig. And I've even started my own podcast, which is so much fun, and I'm enjoying that, and being able to get on these interviews with other people. I'm like, this is my jam. I was totally meant to just talk to people all day long.
What's the podcast name?
Write or Die Show.
Write or Die, like write?
Like write, like writing. Yep.
Write or Die. Okay.
Yep. Write or Die.
And what is so? I haven't listened to it yet. I will.
I've only released 2 episodes.
Okay, so
most people haven't yet. It's brand new.
What's the? I'm assuming it has a lot to do with writing. By the title.
So I am interviewing authors.
Okay.
And we're talking mental health.
Very cool. I think, and that should be a good podcast for a lot of people to listen to, because I always, as I do these, have these conversations and have these interviews with folks, some of them aren't authors, or most of them are not authors, and I'm thinking, man, you need to write a book because you've got so much to offer. It just even telling your story, just laying it out there and being vulnerable. I think there's a lot of power in vulnerability, and it can help a lot of people. One of the things I with Conquering Everest, with the podcast, that all came from a talk that I gave, where I was doing a little bit of research into overcoming obstacles, and got into Sir Edmund Hillary, and he finally conquered Everest. And then once he conquered it, everybody started conquering it, because he laid the groundwork, and it's not about recreating the wheel. And there's a lot of good information, a lot of good stories out there. So, So for anybody that listens to this, if you've thought about writing a book, or you think you've got an interesting story, which you do, and even if you don't think you do, I'm sure you do, I'd say start writing. What's writing look like for you? Do you have a special place, time?
I wish.
Yeah, as I say.
So my office is in my bedroom, so that tends to be where I do it. Or I like to sit on the couch, because then I'm a little more comfy. Whenever I write, I do listen to music. That's kind of my thing. That's why I have to have these headphones. I have other ones for walking the dog that are completely wireless, right? The Bluetooth ones. But these ones, I can stick them in and block out the world. I just have to remember, put them away. My dog likes to eat them.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I've gone through 3 headsets in the last 2 weeks, because I keep forgetting to put them away.
So, oh, good. I'm not the only one.
You're not. No, I've got plenty of times I pick up my headset and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know, and I'm like, this is not food.
It's not tasty. It's not bacon flavored.
No, exactly. So I stick them in and I just go. I wish I had a certain time. I enjoy having routine and schedules, but with the way life is, it's just not possible. So I write when I have time. Okay.
And you talked a little bit, and I'm getting to see it today, your signature look. Let's talk about your signature look. How'd that come to be? What was the story behind that?
So I just really like headbands.
Okay.
And my husband hates them. He's like, you look like you're from the 90s. I'm like, I know, isn't it great? And then the crimpy hair is just something that's a little bit more fun. So usually I have pin straight hair, and my hair does not curl usually. So actually here's the cover of my book, and it's totally straight hair, right? So the crimp was just kind of fun. I was bored COVID, so I was like, I'm gonna buy a crimper. First crimper I bought, though, burned my hair. Oh no. My goodness. I was like, no, my precious hair. So I bought a new one, and it works much better.
Should have threw that video on YouTube. Would have got tons of hits.
It's true.
The burning of the hair, yeah.
Yes. Well, it didn't burn it while I was doing it, but you could smell, like, it smelled burn, and it felt, yeah, this wasn't good. Anyways, but I got a new one, and it works fantastic. And then I had to learn how to do makeup, so it's a little bit funny. My kid loves watching Bailey Sarian. Do you know who that is?
What was it again? I'm sorry.
Bailey Sarian. She does Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Mondays.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of her.
Oh, so if you like true crime, she is so much fun to watch. So she does it on YouTube. So much fun to watch. And so now I'm hearing her theme song in my head. So my kid loves YouTube, and I'm like, okay, every time I go to the living room, I'm like, okay, we'll put on something that I'm gonna like watch too. So she'll put on Bailey Sarian. I'm like, okay, cool. And as she's talking murder, she's doing her makeup.
Okay.
So I'm watching like, oh, that looks so cool. Oh, that looks, and she's like super good at it. All right, so if I'm gonna be on YouTube and stuff, I wanna, look all pretty and whatever.
Yeah.
And being a personal trainer, being a kickboxer, I never put makeup on. So I actually, when I went to Shoppers Drug Mart to buy makeup, I had to ask the lady how to put it on.
So yeah, give me some pointers here.
And I was like, oh, I'm in my 30s and I have no idea what I'm doing. Because back in the early 2000s, you put it on your hand and just smudged it. But I'm watching Bailey Sarian do her thing, and she's using this brush and that brush and this thing, and I'm like, I don't know what all those are. The lady was so nice though, and helped me figure it all out. I did not feel stupid at all by the time I left, but I was so worried about admitting that I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
She was super nice about the whole thing, and so now I've got tons of various kinds of lipsticks, which I went with bright red today, but sometimes I put blue or brown just to have some fun.
I think having a unique style is nice. I've done different things at different times of my life, for beard, goatee, changing my hair, things like that. But when I got into the self-development field, and I was really starting to learn and study from I don't know if you want to call them gurus, the other folks out there that are, writing books and teaching. And one thing I thought is I had this idea. It's like, if you think about an actor or an actress, the method acting, right? They become somebody to and I think what it was Heath Ledger when he played the Joker on Batman. Okay. I guess he like isolated himself for months and went kind of borderline crazy his own self, living as the Joker. And I'm like, if you could, let's do that in a positive way, though. Let's, if you could immerse your mind, body, and soul into the character of yourself that in the future, I think you ultimately end up taking on that persona at some point. So I think that's, I don't know. I need to do a little more digging into that concept, but I think it's always good to have a unique style that you could just put on and kind of transform. Yeah,
it was actually funny. As I was getting ready to come on here, my mom was making dinner. I'm doing my hair, and afterwards, I don't even look like me anymore. I look like a totally different version of myself, like you were saying.
It's changing, and it just metamorphosis, I guess, as we all just change.
Beautiful butterfly now.
Yeah. So there's going to be folks that either watch this live stream or listen to the podcast, and they're going to say, I want to know more about Randi-Lee. So do you have social media presence?
I do. So, yeah.
Share away.
On Facebook, you can find me at RB Writing. Okay. And then I also made a Facebook page for the podcast. So Write or Die Show is the podcast for Facebook. And then I'm also on Instagram at Randi-B Writing. And I have a website, rbwriting.ca. And all of my books are available on Amazon.
And like I said, I will get all these links. I'm trying to write them down, but I'll make sure I've got them all for you, and we'll put it in the description of the podcast, and I will add it to the YouTube version of this as well, so folks can go out there and find you. But well, it's been a pleasure having you on. I think about everything that you had to go through, and suddenly, like, my problems seem to not be as bad, because I'm like, man, the universe really threw it at you. With everything.
Yeah, it was just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And so now I'm just waiting for the next thing to happen.
Yeah. I guess the beauty of it, though, is, without those struggles in your life, maybe these books don't get written. And
exactly.
And these books, who knows how many lives they're going to change. So, even though the struggle's not fun to go through, there's a bigger purpose for it on the other side, once you kind of get through the dark night. But all right, well, I thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna stay in touch, and I hope we could do this again, or maybe talk a little more about writing down the road. But I'd love to have you back on the show at some point. So.
I've always got lots to say. You can ask me anything. I'm an open book.
Yeah, I thought about getting a few different people on and having like just 3 or 4 people and just have an open discussion about.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, just pick a topic and go for it and see what we go through. And since you're a fighter, I know I've got a jiu-jitsu guy. I know amateur kickboxer, Lily and Liz. So shout out to Lily and Liz out there. I have had a conversation with them. So maybe we could do a fight night. There we go.
There you go. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, but. All right. Well, thank you, and I will be keeping in touch, and I look forward to reading your books.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye. There you go. There you have it, my conversation with Randi-Lee. And please do go show her some love and some support. Check out her webpage, which I have linked in the description below. You can also go check out her books on Amazon if you want to buy one. Hey, that's a great way to support the show as well as to support our guest. Now, if you're still with me, I thank you. I appreciate you. I really do. I know, it's almost an hour. You're probably thinking, man, an hour? What is this guy, Joe Rogan? But I could never, I don't know if I could do a 3-hour podcast. But hey, if you're still with me, I appreciate you listening. And I hope you will consider sharing this podcast with your family and friends. Make sure you give it a follow. And if you have the option to leave a rating, please do so. Now, if you want to reach out to me, that's very easy to do. You can email me at brian@conqueringeverest.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I'll have it all linked in the description here below. And, if you want to support the show, there's ways to do that as well. We've got a we've got a PayPal me set up if you'd like to donate. Not required. It's not required. It's just if you enjoy the show and you wanna show your love, hey, I would appreciate it. Everything we get's just gonna help to make this show better. So, anyways, until next time, make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you follow, because then you will get notified. And make sure you go out to YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, and when the next Facebook or the next live cast kicks off, well, hey, you're going to be in the know. So anyways, until next time, this is Brian. And as always, aim high, be courageous, and do amazing things.